Hello, all you AP Biology students out there. I'm going to give you a high school science teacher slash medical student's take on what you need to know about the kidney and circulatory system. Why should you care about your kidneys? To me, there are two practical reasons. The first is that it's a vital organ. So your kidneys are one of the five vital organs that are essential for human survival. That's the brain, the heart, the liver, the lungs, and then your kidneys. So it's good to know about the physical structures that keep you alive and able to live a full life. The second is the insanely high use of your kidneys. Every day, all of the blood in your body is filtered through your kidneys over 400 times. Not only this, it performs this function for more than 70 years without ever being cleaned or replaced. With that much use, you might as well try and unlock its secrets. Finally, there is also one academic reason that you should care about your kidneys. You're expected to know it on your AP test. The main objective of this lesson is that I want you to be able to describe the three primary functions of the kidney, as well as how the body controls their use. I always tell my AP students that I want you to be able to describe in your own words to your friends what's going on with this organ and organ system. Before we begin the lesson, here's the main point of it, and here's the answer to the objectives. The whole function, the whole main point of the kidney is basically to filter the blood and save the good stuff, eliminate the bad stuff, and maintain fluid balance. So that's the thing that I want you to keep in the back of your mind as we go through all of the mechanisms. And also, the second answer to our objective is that kidney control is really achieved by hormones. And what the hormones do is affect the permeability of the collecting duct. So let's go way back and start from the beginning. We know that our bodies and all plants and animals use four types of biological molecules for all of the functions that are associated with life. These are carbohydrates, lipids, nucleic acids, and proteins. Carbohydrates act as the primary source of energy to fuel the processes of life. Lipids mostly act as energy storage, membrane barriers, and hormones. Nucleic acids are the blueprints for proteins as they determine the sequence of amino acids within a protein. And it is those proteins that really serve as the functional unit within the body. They play many different roles within the body, including structural and mechanical support, enzymes and hormones, acid-base balance, transport, antibodies that can be used as energy. They're the utility player in the biological molecule world. When we start learning about the kidney, it's really important to understand the composition of proteins. Because if you understand the structure of proteins, then you'll understand the need for the filtration of the blood. So basically, proteins are composed of amino acids linked together by a peptide bond. Each amino acid can be thought of having three parts: an amino group, a carboxyl group, and a variable side chain. Now let's think about what this really means. Let's say you eat a big steak for dinner. The stomach acid starts the process of chemically digesting that protein by breaking those peptide bonds that hold the individual amino acids together in that muscle strand. These individual components of the protein get passed through the muscular pyloric valve and enter your small intestine. It is here where the cells of the small intestine absorb those amino acids into the blood. Once the amino acids are in the blood, they get transported to the liver via the portal vein, and now they act as a pool of individual amino acids that the liver can use to make new proteins. Now let's say you immediately eat another steak. Eventually, that amino acid pool reaches capacity and is completely saturated. The body has an excess of amino acids for the continuous protein production that it does. When this happens, the body must find ways to rid itself of the excess amino acids. This process is called deamination, or the breaking down of the individual amino acids into its three component parts. The carbon-containing remnants can be converted to glucose and used as energy, or can be converted to fatty acids and be used as energy storage. These processes eventually lead to that carbon, oxygen, and hydrogen being released from your body as carbon dioxide that you exhale or water that you sweat out. But what about the amino group? What about that nitrogen? How does the body go about getting rid of the nitrogen? Here is where your kidneys come into play. So your two kidneys are located in the upper abdominal area against the back muscles on both the left and right side of your body. They're extremely complex in mechanism, and they have the three primary functions that we're beginning to understand: blood purification, waste elimination, and then fluid balance. Now that we understand the function of the kidney to save the good, eliminate the bad, and maintain fluid balance, let's look at how blood plasma is actually filtered. Filtration is an extraordinarily complex process that is terminology or definition heavy. So you have to know the anatomy or all the individual parts within the kidney to really understand what's happening with the filtration. I'm going to give you the speed version of how it all works, but it's your job to be able to draw out the functional unit of the kidney, the nephron, from memory by the time that you take your test. So we know the renal artery brings blood to the kidney. Now what happens to this blood? Well, this blood is the filtrate, so this is what you're going to save the good stuff from, eliminate the bad stuff from, and make sure that you have the right amount of water within it. So when that blood arrives in the kidney, it collects in glomerulus. One of the most essential concepts of filtration is that there's a pressure difference that pushes the filtrate from the glomerulus into the nephron. And the nephron is the actual filter. It's the functional unit of the kidney. Pressure pushed the blood filtrate from the glomerulus into the functional unit of the kidney, which is the nephron. So now blood is flowing through this proximal tubule of the nephron. It's here where we begin to save the stuff that we want. Sodium and glucose get actively transported out of that tubule into the cortex of the kidney. And when you transport those ions across the tubule wall, water and bicarbonate are going to passively follow because of diffusion. The filtrate continues to flow from the proximal tubule to the loop of Henle. And this loop of Henle part is really intriguing. The descending limb is permeable to water, but it's impermeable to solutes. So that means water leaves and the solutes concentrate within the tubule. This is where we really start to see the fluid balance function of the kidney. It's saving all this water, conserving all this water so that we don't get dehydrated. The filtrate continues to flow, and now it goes up the ascending limb of the loop of Henle, but this ascending limb is impermeable to water, but highly permeable to sodium and chloride. This means there's a concentration difference of the amount of ions within compared to the amount of ions without. So we know from chemistry that ions will go from an area of high concentration to low concentration. So now we can see that the sodium ions and the chloride ions are going to passively transport out of the loop of Henle and into the medulla of the kidney so that it can be used by the body. As those ions leave the tubule, the concentration of those ions gets less and less and less. So once you're at the top of the ascending limb of the loop of Henle, the kidney needs to put in energy to get the last bit of sodium and chloride out, and that's going to be active transportation where energy is required. In the distal tubule, sort of like the last stop for filtrate, it's the last of the salt and bicarbonate is filtered out and goes back into the cortex. And what's left inside of the tubules is highly concentrated urea, the filtrate that gets sent on to the collecting duct. This collecting duct is connected to the bladder, so the collecting duct sends the filtrate, that is basically water and our waste, the urine, to the bladder. The last part of kidney function that you really need to understand is the fluid balance dynamic. That collecting duct is under the control of hormones, and basically those hormones control the constriction of the tubule. So what that means is if your hypothalamus senses that you don't have enough water, it's going to tell your pituitary to release the hormone known as antidiuretic hormone or vasopressin, and that vasopressin is going to get to your collecting duct by traveling through the blood, and it's going to constrict the tubule. When you constrict the tubule, it becomes more permeable to water, so water is going to leave, and this leaves your urine being more highly concentrated or more yellow. If antidiuretic hormone is not present, then the collecting duct is not permeable to water, and a large volume of urine is produced, and you'll have that clear pee. Thank you for taking the time to listen about the kidney and circulatory system. I really look forward to teaching you more AP biology as part of Khan Academy's team.